I'm Josh Sutphin, lead game designer with Lightbox Interactive, and we're here at the Alamo Drafthouse. We've just barely unveiled Starhawk, our new single and multiplayer third-person shooter for Sony PlayStation 3. One of the most unique elements about this game, which is a spiritual successor to Warhawk, is that we're taking the same very popular and well-received online multiplayer gameplay, the high-intensity air, ground, and vehicular combat from Warhawk, and we're adding in a very interesting new feature, which we're calling Build and Battle. And this feature allows players to dynamically change the battlefield in tactical ways during the course of the game. You can call down structures ranging from small automatic turrets that attack ground troops, ranging all the way up to much larger structures, bunkers, sniper towers, linkable walls, structures that provide your team with vehicles, garages for 4x4s, for example, or launch pads to bring the new Hawk vehicle into play. This build and battle feature creates a much broader strategic and tactical space than we've seen in other multiplayer shooters before. Teams coordinate to build a tactically focused base to defend from whatever particular threat their enemies are bringing against them, rather than just whatever threat a level designer had envisioned before the game ever hit shelves. Starhawk takes place on the lawless frontier of space, far away from the center of human civilization, where a group of intrepid rift miners, which we colloquially call rifters, are mining blue gold, also known as rift energy. Rift energy is the most powerful force in the universe. It's kind of a plasmatic blue and teal energy source, which is much more powerful than oil, much more powerful than nuclear energy, very efficient, very clean, very desirable, very valuable. It's also very dangerous. When rift miners are exposed directly to rift energy, it creates a kind of a mutation. There's a reaction that takes place where often rift miners are killed by this. Their flesh is burned from their bones, their skeletons are mutated into strange shapes, and it's a horrible and painful death. But some of the stronger rift miners, for reasons that are not entirely well understood, are able to resist the worst of the effects and suffer a fate which some might argue is worse than death, transformation into a very strange, hideous, savage, and primal creature. These creatures are known as the Outcast. The Outcast they have a particular affinity for rift energy. They essentially worship the rifts. It's something that they hold in very high regard as kind of a natural and very important part of the kind of core cycle of the universe. And the Outcast view the rifters' mining of the rifts as essentially an affront to nature. And so this sets up the conflict between the two factions. This is the essential conflict that's at the core of the game. Into this conflict steps Emmett Graves, our hero. Emmett Graves has a particularly interesting history in the sense that he and his brother were working a rift mining claim sometime in the past. It was actually their first claim. They were kind of jumping in on the blue gold rush, and they had a bit of a disaster, and both of them were exposed to rift energy. And Emmett, for reasons that are even less well understood than the reasons by which some rifters don't die from the exposure, not only didn't die, but didn't fully transform. His gearman, Sidney Cutter, was able to fit him with a set of rift regulators, which was a technological design that Cutter had come up with on his own in an attempt to save his dear friend, which works out pretty well in the sense that Emmett is not transforming. He's able to keep the rift energy infection, which is very much within him, is able to keep it at bay. He's able to retain his humanity. Unfortunately, this does still make him somewhat of an outcast from normal human society because he's weird. He's kind of glowy. He's got rift energy coursing through him in all of these ways, and he looks a little different. He acts a little different, and it's something that he's constantly struggling with, not to transform into one of the outcasts. This has led him and his gearman, Sidney Cutter, into a career as hired guns, mercenaries that travel around and protect rift mining claims from outcast warbands. In the course of doing this job, they've become the best at what they do. And ultimately, this has brought them back to their home world of Dust, which is under attack from a merciless outlaw. And they haven't been back here to Dust in the better part of a decade, so it's kind of a bitter homecoming because they're coming home to people who are somewhat suspicious of them. They're coming home to people and a home that they thought they had left behind forever, that's under siege from these horrible enemies that Emmett himself may be in the process of becoming. The single-player campaign takes you through the story of Emmett and Cutter working against these outcast warbands on Dust and the outlaw that's leading them. And that also, of course, includes some interesting discoveries about Emmett's own nature, getting into his rift energy infection and his relationship to the outcast.